Moving into a new home is supposed to be an exciting, fresh start, a chance to build new memories, settle in, and finally feel at peace. But for me, that peaceful beginning quickly turned into one of the most stressful days of my life. Picture this: I'm unloading boxes, carefully carrying my belongings into what I thought was my very own ranch, ready to start this new chapter. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I hear sirens. And before I can even understand what's happening, a neighbor, someone from the HOA, a real Karen type, has already called the cops on me. Why? Because she thought I was a thief. The feeling of disbelief hit me hard. How could someone see me moving in and assume I was there to steal? This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It felt personal. The tension in the air was thick as the police arrived, questions flying, and my simple day of moving turned into a nightmare. This woman from the HOA, who seemed more concerned about appearances and rules than actual people, had made a serious mistake that I never expected to face. As I stood there, trying to explain who I was and why I was there, I realized this was about more than just me. It's about what happens when people judge others without knowing the full story, especially when it comes to neighbors, homeowners associations, and that very specific kind of drama that can turn a community upside down. What made this situation even more complicated? The HOA rules, the neighbors' reactions, and the fact that this ranch was supposed to be my safe haven. But just when I thought things couldn't get worse, something happened that changed everything. And it all started with one phone call to the police. What came next was something I never saw coming. The ranch had been a dream for years. After months of searching, saving, and endless paperwork, I finally found a place that felt like home. It wasn't fancy or huge, just enough land, quiet surroundings, and the freedom I craved after years in cramped apartments. Moving day was supposed to be a fresh start, a clean slate away from all the noise and chaos of city life. But the moment I arrived, the neighborhood's vibe wasn't quite what I expected. See, this HOA wasn't just your usual neighborhood association. They had strict rules, endless regulations, and a handful of residents who took it upon themselves to police every little thing. And Karen, the woman who called the cops, was their unofficial enforcer. I'd heard stories about her, whispered warnings from neighbors about how she loved to stir up trouble and never hesitated to call out anyone who didn't fit her idea of perfect. At first, I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just being cautious, or maybe it was a misunderstanding. But as soon as the officers pulled up, I realized this was more than a simple mix-up. The police asked for ID, questioned me about the property, and even checked my paperwork. All the while, Karen stood nearby, watching with that smug look, as if she'd caught some criminal red-handed. It felt like the entire neighborhood had turned against me before I'd even unpacked a single box. I tried to explain, to show my documents, but the damage was done. The suspicion was planted, and now I was the outsider, the stranger who no one wanted around. What I didn't know then was that this incident was just the beginning. There were deeper tensions in the community, secrets about the HOA's real control, and a few neighbors who might not be as innocent as they seemed. And with Karen's unexpected move to involve the police, things were about to get a lot more complicated. After that day, I quickly realized the challenges of living under this HOA's watchful eye went far beyond just Karen's accusations. The community seemed divided, with some neighbors quietly siding with her, while others gave me wary looks, unsure whether to trust the newcomer. The more I learned, the clearer it became that this wasn't just about one woman's suspicion, was about power, control, and an invisible set of rules nobody talked about openly. Karen wasn't the only one who seemed obsessed with maintaining the status quo. There were meetings I wasn't invited to, whispered conversations when I passed by, and subtle ways people made it clear I didn't quite belong. The HOA's regulations were strict, but enforcement felt selective, almost personal. I started hearing about other residents who had their own run-ins with the board complaints, about minor things turning into huge battles, neighbors pushed out or bullied into silence. It felt less like a community and more like a battlefield, with Karen playing a key role in keeping everyone on edge. Then there was the mystery of the ranch itself. When I bought it, I thought I'd found peace. But soon I noticed odd things hidden. Cameras on neighbors' properties pointed my way, strange noises at night, and even subtle threats disguised as friendly advice. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that this HOA had more secrets than I realized. Some neighbors hinted that Karen wasn't acting alone, that there was a small group running the show behind the scenes, and they weren't above bending the rules to keep newcomers like me in check. All of this made me question what I'd gotten myself into. Was this really the safe haven I dreamed of? Or had I just stepped into a trap? With tensions rising and the police still skeptical after that first call, I knew this story was far from over. Something bigger was brewing beneath the surface, and I had no idea who I could trust. Days passed, and the tension in the neighborhood didn't ease, it only got thicker. Every time I stepped outside, I felt eyes on me, like I was under constant surveillance. The police visit had made things worse, not better. Karen's whispers spread through the community like wildfire, painting me as someone suspicious, even though all I wanted was to settle in quietly. I kept wondering, why would someone so quick to call the cops jump to such harsh conclusions without even asking me? Then, strange things started happening around the ranch. My mail went missing, tools disappeared from the yard, and late at night I caught glimpses of shadows moving just beyond the fence. It was like someone was trying to send me a message. This wasn't a welcome place. I tried to reach out to other neighbors for support, but most stayed silent or gave me uneasy smiles that didn't reach their eyes. It felt like I was being isolated on purpose. The HOA board held a meeting that week, and although I wasn't officially invited, I couldn't resist attending. The room was packed with familiar face. Karen was there, of course, looking like she owned the place. As the meeting went on, I realized the HOA's grip on this community was far tighter than I'd imagined. Rules were enforced with an iron fist, but only when it suited certain people. Complaints against Karen seemed to vanish without a trace, while any minor issue I raised was met with harsh criticism. It was clear this wasn't just about keeping the neighborhood orderly. It was about control. Just when I thought things couldn't get more intense, I found a note slipped under my door. It wasn't signed, but the message was clear. You don't belong here. Leave now or face the consequences. My heart raced as I realized I was no longer just dealing with nosy neighbors or HOA drama. This was something darker, something personal. And with the police still unsure who to believe, I knew I had to be careful. What would happen next? Would I be forced out, or could I fight back against this hidden power in my new home? Just when I thought I had a grip on what was happening, something else caught me completely off guard. One afternoon, as I was organizing boxes in the garage, a car slowly rolled past my driveway. I didn't think much of it until I saw Karen inside, watching me with that same cold, calculating stare. But what made my blood run cold was what happened next. She rolled down her window and, without a word, handed me a thick envelope and drove off. Hands shaking, I opened it. Inside were copies of documents, sold property records, HOA meeting minutes, and even photos that showed my ranch had been a point of dispute for years. Apparently, there was a legal battle I had no idea about, involving some neighbors trying to claim parts of the land. But the real shock? Karen's name was all over the papers, connected to a group pushing to seize control of properties like mine. Suddenly, the HOA drama wasn't just about rules and petty complaints, it was about something much bigger. This wasn't just a neighborhood squabble. It was a calculated move by people who wanted power, who saw newcomers like me as threats to their control. Karen had been watching me closely, but now it was clear she wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She was part of a plan to intimidate me into giving up my ranch. And with the police still uncertain, I realized I was caught in the middle of a fight I never signed up for. The stakes had just skyrocketed. I wasn't just fighting to settle into my new home. Anymore, I was fighting for my rights, my property, and my peace of mind. And with Karen and her allies making moves in the shadows, I knew this battle was far from over. The question was, how far would they go to push me out? After discovering those documents, I knew I had to act fast. I gathered every piece of paper, every photo, and every bit of evidence I could find about the HOA's shady dealings. I reached out to a local attorney who specialized in property rights, and together we started building a case to protect my ranch. The next HOA meeting felt like a showdown waiting to happen. Karen and her allies were ready to push harder, but this time I wasn't going to back down. When the meeting began, I stood up and calmly presented everything: the history of the property disputes, the legal threats, and how the HOA had been manipulating the neighborhood to scare off new homeowners like me. Faces turned pale as the truth came out. Karen tried to defend herself, but with the evidence laid bare, there was no room for her usual games. The police, who had been skeptical before, started to see things differently once they understood the bigger picture. Just when it seemed like I had won, an unexpected twist hit. Karen, realizing the tide was turning, dropped a bombshell. She revealed that the entire HOA board had been secretly recording conversations from my ranch, trying to find any reason to evict me. The surveillance wasn't just about protecting the neighborhood, it was a personal vendetta. But here's the catch. Those recordings showed something no one expected. Someone else from the neighborhood was involved in illegal activities, and Karen had been using me as a distraction to cover it up. This revelation shocked everyone and shifted the focus completely. Suddenly, I wasn't just fighting to keep my home. I was uncovering corruption that ran deeper than I ever imagined. Karen's plan to intimidate me backfired in a way she never saw coming. In the end, the police promised a full investigation. The HOA was forced to answer for their actions, and I finally felt a sense of justice starting to take root. But even as the dust settled, I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets was this neighborhood hiding. Because one thing was clear: my fight for peace was only just beginning.